Hey guys, okay, gonna be doing a little Sugar Shack tour here today. Try to hit on every point about this place and what happens in here that I can, how it works. So yeah, this is the Sugar Shack here. This is where we boil maple tree sap down to pure 100% Canadian maple syrup. We got our wood out there, that's my wife. We've got the ATV, which we're gonna be making a video of soon. Just doing the 25-hour first service on that. And so I guess we'll start with the sap. So we collect sap, there's other videos on this, but we collect sap in these 275-gallon food grade totes. And this one here stays at the shack. It's up on these pallets here, so it's above the height of the evaporator inside, which we'll check out in a minute. But basically what happens is that gravity feeds the sap into the evaporator. So we fill that tank every day with about 270 gallons of sap. And the way we do that is I go and collect it with this skid steer right here, or sometimes we'll use a wheel loader, but whatever we use, it's got forks on the front, and we pick up these totes. So I just picked up this one. It's almost filled. It's full to about right there. So it's running pretty well today. We had minus one last night, and it's about it's like plus 10 today, degrees Celsius. So what I do is I lift that up in the air. I hook this white tube right here to it. It's a 1.5 inch PVC tube with just a quick coupler. And then we just gravity feed into the Sugar Shack tank. And that's a very quick process. So once I lift that tank up, it's basically 3-4 minutes at the most to completely drain that tank. So from there, we'll step inside and I'll kind of show you where the sap heads from there. I got my solar panel there, so the lights in here are all solar powered. I've got them on right now just to show you guys. I know it's during the day. It's just some Amazon sort of three lights. They screw into like a normal, where like a normal bulb would screw into. Just got a pigtail up there. And so yeah, we'll do a little pan. So that's my little battery box there. It's got a 12-volt battery with an inverter, and that just gets charged from the solar panel. Anyway, the sap comes in here through this tube, again, all by gravity, goes down through here, goes around the evaporator, and over to the float box side. A lot of guys that do maple syrup will know exactly what this is, but I'll just quickly explain the process. So basically the syrup or sap flows in here, and in here we have a little float, and this box right here is filled with air. It's sealed. It's a stainless steel little float box. And as the evaporator here requires more sap, so basically the level of this sap always stays about 1 inch from the bottom of the pan. As it requires sap, this little float will fall down. I'll actually make it happen right here. So it'll fall down and you can see sap flowing in right there when I push it down. Then when I let it up, it stops. So that's kind of what regulates the sap into the tank. And we find that for about 12 inches with the sap tank above this line, it's a good amount of pressure just to keep it flowing. And we haven't had too many freeze up issues. If it's going to be a very cold night, I drain that line. And just be mindful of that. We have a heat gun here as well, hooked to a generator if we need to heat something up. And from there, from that float box, basically the sap flows into this compartment here and down through here, through this opening, through here, and through this tube, into this compartment, then through another hole that's right down here, into here. And by the time it gets to here, with the right conditions, heat, all that, it's almost maple syrup. So I just took a little video. We'll cut to that right now of the sap of the syrup flowing out. We're actually drying off some maple syrup. So today we happen to be making syrup around 221, 222. As you can see there. So the number 7 is 219 degrees Fahrenheit. We set this every morning. So this gauge here unscrews out of the pan there, and then we put it into a pot of pure boiling water and set the needle to 0. And then theoretically at 7 degrees above the boiling point of water, you should have maple syrup, but usually it's a couple degrees above that. And you can see we just started drying off, so it's actually climbing a little bit. Sort of draw off a little faster. And this syrup, I like to draw off a little bit heavy, so it's actually more than maple syrup in there, and then we can thin it out later with either sap or some distilled water. But basically, yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. We're just boiling water off of sap, and what you are left with is maple syrup. This is the Firebox here, so we'll just open this up quickly just to show you guys what's going on in here. So that upper pan that I showed you, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but there's little flues sticking down. Basically, they're like fingers, long fingers that stick down from the bottom of the first syrup pan or sap pan, and basically they increase the surface area that the fire is actually touching. So basically, I'm trying to get some better light here. Yeah, you're increasing the surface area that the fire is touching the sap. So you get a pretty aggressive boil when you have the right fire going, and basically we can remove about 15 to 20 gallons of sap per hour with this particular unit. So yeah, that's that. And then what I do is when we're drawing off, as you saw earlier there in that clip, basically I'm just going through a little Orlon filter, and then it has a pre-filter on it. And that's where I keep the syrup until I'm ready to filter and bottle. So from this stainless steel pot, we go into basically it goes onto a stove. We heat it up to 180 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which kills any bacteria that might be in it. And then we run it through a vacuum filter press, which I'll make another video on that. And then from that vacuum filter press, we bottle it. And that's pretty much all there is to it. This is sort of the inside of the shack. The cupola is a must. So as this is boiling water off, we need to be able to get rid of the steam. And the only way to do that is to make sure that the roof is open. So the roof has two little flaps on pulleys right there. And we're able to just open those doors, and the steam goes out the top. And we'll just go to the side, and I'll show you what the chimney setup looks like. Okay, so there's the view from the outside. So there's the one side of one of those little trap doors. So the steam comes out through there, and then our smoke goes up through that stack. So that black section of pipe is a double wall pipe. We just had a piece of that laying around, telescopic. So we put that on, and then that's the stainless section that came with the evaporator. It has a top on it, and that wire you see there just goes down to the side of the shack. So at night, when the fire's totally out and we don't want rain to get in there, we just close that little flap. So another thing I wanted to show you guys, keep one full 5-gallon pail of pure sap in here just for emergencies, in case we get for some reason, some kind of uncontrolled boil over situation in one of these pans. We can quickly add some sap to it and cool everything down. Hasn't happened, well actually it happened once. We had a little bit of an issue where there was some stuff flying up on here and it was burning, so we thought the whole pan was burning. So we added some sap, cooled down, long story short, but it just got a little burned on the side. The syrup itself wasn't actually burning, but it was good to have that there, and you're able to cool down this whole system quite quickly if that happens. Also, another good thing we have here is some defoamer. So this is just a commercial defoamer, obviously food grade. Basically, if you get a lot of foam happening in this pan, you can add like 1-2 grains of this stuff and it will knock down the foam. What you can also do is you can hang a little cup of it on the side at the line where you don't want the foam to get up to. And as soon as it gets to the level of that cup, the foam will drop back down. We haven't tried that yet, but they do make that equipment for that. This little stove we have here is good for just cooking pancakes, making bacon, eggs. It's also good for reheating the syrup before we bottle, whether we bottle that here or at home or whatever happens. It's just a great little stove to have. It runs on propane, or you can convert it to natural gas if you like. It's just super handy to have in the sugar shack. It's good for heating up the water in the morning to calibrate the thermometer there. And then we have this little buddy heater. It's a big buddy heater. It's hooked to a 20-pound propane tank on the outside of the shack. It's good for like when there's cold days, because this evaporator, as hot as it is on the inside, very little heat actually makes it to the outside. So this is all, they have all insulated sides. The steam is going right out the top. So it's not as warm in here as you would think when it's a really cold day. We have all stainless steel single wall pipe, and then it switches to that double wall as I was showing there. And yes, you can see light through the roof because we haven't put the little cone over top of the roof yet to seal that, but we'll do that soon. And then we had this piece of roofing left over, and just to be like extra careful, we put it behind here to protect the wood from the heat from the single wall pipe. But we didn't really need that because this, like, I mean, it is not hot at all, and this thing is running pretty good right now, and we've had it quite hot in the Firebox. And just the fact that the smoke is going up through this so fast and the sap is cooling it as it goes by the flue, there's just not as much heat in this pipe as you would think. It is quite hot to touch, like very hot, but it just doesn't transfer to the wall as much as we thought it would. Okay, so this is just going to be a voiceover. The microphone died while I was taping this little segment here, but basically all I'm talking about is that little ThermoPro thermometer that I have right there. So I picked that up on Amazon. I have a couple of them. They have 2 probes on each one that come out, so that's super handy. All you really need to make syrup with this particular evaporator is just that analog gauge right there. So you set that in the morning in your boiling water to 0, and then when it hits 7 or a little bit above, you basically have maple syrup in your last pan. But what I found is with a smaller evaporator, it's difficult to maintain or start the gradient of sap to syrup. So by having the different thermometers in the different tanks there, you can see the one goes into the second syrup tank and one is just hanging there in the sap tank. I'm able to monitor the temperature and see where it is in relation to 219. Just to make sure I'm not making syrup in the sap pan, or I'm not making syrup in the second last syrup pan. And it just helps me to be, a little safer, a little bit more accurate with the whole process. And they're also super handy just to have in the sugar shack for taking syrup temperatures when you're drying off into your cup there to do a hydrometer reading, because the hydrometers are set to, or at least the marks on them are set to take the density of syrup at 211 Fahrenheit. But even with the cup sitting in the warm steam there, once you draw it off, it usually drops down to around 205 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So you need to know what the temperature of your syrup is when you're taking hydrometer readings, or else you'll get a false reading. So what I do is I just take that left-hand probe I have there, you can kind of see, and I just drop that into the cup, fill the cup up, I see what the temperature is. If it's 205, okay, I go to my little chart on the wall. Okay, the float should be floating somewhere around, I think it's like 59.6 bricks or something like that. And that way you get a good accurate reading. And see, actually, I'm just showing it right there. It's that red line only gives you a reading if the syrup is 211, and rarely does it stay at 211 in the hydrometer cup. And there's the chart right there. I just got that online at CDL Wisconsin. You just Google it, it'll pop up, and there's all your numbers right there, from 200 right down to, I think it's like 60 degrees Fahrenheit, I can't really see. But it makes a huge difference having a digital thermometer with a display that's fairly accurate and quick. So that's pretty much it, guys. That is the tour of the Sugar Shack. There's a lot going on, but at the same time, there's not that much going on. I mean, we're just taking water and taking it off of syrup or off of sap and turning it into maple syrup. It's a very straightforward process. You can do it at home on the smallest little pan. You can get a bucket of sap, boil it down, and you'll have, like a little tiny bottle of maple syrup that you can put on your pancakes or in your coffee or whatever you want. People have been doing it for thousands of years. So it's nothing new. It's just that there's small machines like the one I have. There's massive machines, and by no means is this a big operation. This is actually quite tiny. And like I said, there's people that just do it at home on their stoves. So I appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate you subscribing. We just hit 1,000 subscribers, which is awesome, a few weeks back. So we're gonna try to keep making as many videos as possible. Things are getting busy this time of year with construction, landscaping, that type of thing. So I'll try my best to keep up with it. And so, yeah, stay tuned for that next video we're going to be doing on the Polaris 4x4 there, doing the 25-hour first service. Yeah, there's a final little view of the Sugar Shack. Beautiful day here. I think it was like 10, 11 degrees at this point. Super sunny, perfect day for making maple syrup. I think we got about another week or so of running left, depending on how the temperatures act. But hopefully we can do a few more days of boils, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and make some more maple syrup. Thanks for watching, guys.